All right, I see everybody entering. Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining. My name is Siva Kumaran and I am a program coordinator at Rabo Partnerships. Today is the fourth panel session in a series of 5 panel sessions as part of the World Bank International Symposium on Cooperative Financial Institutions. If you are interested in learning more about the previous sessions and registering for the remaining sessions, please visit the link as presented on the slides. We will also make sure to post this in the chat later on. Just a few housekeeping items before we begin. We are offering simultaneous translation, so please click on the icon on the bottom of the screen and select your preferred language. Today we have several options: English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese. There is also a Q&A option available. Your microphone will be muted throughout the whole session, but through the Q&A box, you can post a question at any time. And lastly, the session is being recorded, so we will share the recordings on the symposium website afterwards. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Dalia Mejia, who is Program Officer Financial Inclusion at WOCU, who is leading the session.
Thank you, Ruby. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our panel. We are really thrilled to have you all join us, and we are excited to have an engaging discussion with our distinguished panelists. Today, our topic is about how to involve women and youth, specifically from rural areas, in strengthening and expanding cooperative financial institutions. This is a topic that's really important and core to the cooperative values of inclusion, yet we don't hear it frequently discussed. And so we're really looking forward to addressing it today and to learning about related challenges and opportunities in this area. Next slide, please. So first, I would like to introduce World Council of Credit Unions. We are a credit union association, a trade association, and an implementer of international development projects in financial inclusion. We are focused on how to reach rural and remote areas globally. And WOCU has been around for 50 years. Our network reaches more than 86,000 credit unions and 375 million members worldwide. And WOCU's mission is to lead advocacy, innovation, and good governance for credit unions globally. We have the belief that all people should be accessing affordable, reliable, and sustainable financial services. So next slide, please. Before we start, I'd like to highlight 2 initiatives of WOCU, specifically led by the Worldwide Foundation. And they are very related to our topic today. So first is WICUP, which is the World Council Young Credit Union Professional Network. And this initiative has been around for the last 20 years and has empowered young leaders globally in more than 40 countries to connect together and use their voice. A lot of young people benefit from scholarships through this program. And today we have WICUP Director Tom Belekevich with us attending this session, and he will be able to answer any of your questions on this initiative in the Q&A session. So thank you, Tom, for joining us. The other WOCU Worldwide Foundation initiative I'd like to highlight is GWLN, which is the Global Women's Leadership Network, which I hope a lot of you are familiar with and a member of. And GWLN has been around for the last 12 years and has been really the only international platform available in order to promote gender equity and women leadership in the credit union space. It's engaged more than 4,500 people in around the world. And most importantly is the establishment of over 150 active local sister societies. Most recently, we're working on launching the first sister society in a Francophone country in Senegal. So our panelist Diato can talk to you about that as well and the journey. And we also have the GWLN director with us, Lena Giacomopolis, who is also happy to answer any of your questions that you have, especially about a recent paper that GWLN produced, which is cleverly titled the Pink Paper. And it surveyed a lot of members from GWLN to talk about the barriers that they face in rising to leadership roles in the credit union movement. And it has some recommendations for credit unions to promote women in leadership positions. So you can ask Lena more questions as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so to run through the agenda, I'm going to introduce our panelists, and then I'll give a quick background about the topics we'll talk about today. And then we will open it for the panel discussion where they will be able to provide a lot more detail on these topics. And we'll have a Q&A session with them. And then at the end, we will open the session to the audience for your participation. And we encourage you to ask questions in the chat. Or I think it's called the Q&A chat. Okay, let's introduce the panelists. So our first panelist is Diato Kulibali, which I have had the pleasure of working with over the past year on a WOKU project in Senegal called the GLI for Credit Unions, where GLI stands for Gender Investing Lens. Gender Lens Investing. And in addition, for being an advisor on gender and inclusive finance, Diato is an entrepreneur herself, and she is the founder of an agropastoral farm called Bimoni. And she provides training for women and youth livestock breeders in Senegal. So she has a lot of experience related to today's panel, and we look forward to hearing from her. Our next panelist is Patricia Perez Guerra, who is the general manager of a credit union in Colombia called Microempresas de Colombia. And we are very excited to have her. She's had a long experience in the credit union space and in the microcredit sector. And she's partnered with WOKU before on a Colombia Banca project a few years ago. And we're excited to hear from her about that partnership and about her general experience in financial inclusion, specifically for women and youth. And last but not least, we have Manfred Alfonso Deysenbrock, who is the chair of Central Security Cooperative Network in Brazil. He's also a WOKU board member, and we're very lucky to have him. And he's had a long history in the credit union movement. Some of the roles he's held include chairman of the board of Security Cooperative Bank, chairman of Security Foundation Board of Trustees. And we're very excited to hear what he has to say about this topic. And we also know that he will be introducing two special guests later on, which we're very excited to hear from, Vinicius Matia and Iveti Schoffen, who are members of the Youth and Women Credit Committees of Security, which are very exciting initiatives we're looking forward to hear about. Okay, now that we've introduced the panelists, I am going to give a quick rundown of some of the challenges that we'll talk about today in terms of financial inclusion for women and youth, especially in rural areas. So the first one we have here is the lack of financial products that are designed with the needs of women and youth in mind, specifically those in rural areas. So traditional credit terms, traditional financial products do not necessarily consider these special barriers, whether they are legal barriers, educational barriers, or challenges caused by social norms. And today we're going to talk a lot more about these barriers and what CFIs can do to address them. We'll hear from panelists about this topic. The second challenge we'll talk about is just the fact of being remote. Being remote adds a layer of time barriers, of transportation costs to these women and young people in order to reach a branch, be it a financial institution. And there's also the challenge of lack of financial literacy, financial education in these areas. And then the third challenge is really important and is something that I think we should all be thinking about in CFIs, but also everywhere, which is the lack of representation. Especially here, we're talking about women and young people in leadership positions and in decision-making positions. And this is an area where we'd like to see how CFIs can improve on. And we have some successful models today to learn from. Okay, next slide, please. So yes, and on a positive outlook, we are here today because we know that CFIs can do more, and they do have the opportunity to offer unique advantages to their members, especially because of their mission of inclusion, of financial inclusion. And so in the next slide, I will be very quickly running through some of examples of how CFIs can help. And then I will leave it to the panelists to dig a lot more deeply into these topics. So first here, I'm going to talk about the ability to improve offerings of financial services and products. And so CFIs can be thinking about the design of their products in order to really meet the specific needs of rural women and youth. And here I mention the Woku Senegal GLI for Credit Unions project again, because through that project, we were able to find, we've been working with PAMECAS, a credit union network in Senegal, and we've been able to find with our team that rural women usually lack assets, which are really essential and required for meeting collateral requirements. And so they tend to go for smaller loans and for group loans, which are good to have, but they don't provide the same opportunity in terms of potential for growth and increasing their business returns. And so through our project, we worked with PAMECAS to pilot improved credit terms that really give a higher ceiling amounts for credit for women and then reduce these collateral requirements. And Diato, who has been leading this effort with the country team, is going to give us a lot more insight about the challenges and successes of that project. Next slide, please. So next, it's really important to highlight the digital solutions that can help us address these barriers and the innovations that CFIs can offer to really expand their reach of their financial products and services to remote rural areas. And here I'd like to highlight Microempresas de Colombia because they've been successful at offering digital financial services and a lot of trainings for business development for entrepreneurs, especially in rural areas, remotely. And Patricia is going to talk to us specifically about the Semia Rural Cooperativa program, which at Woku we usually call field officer banking. And this is an initiative that financial advisors go into rural areas and use digital devices to connect populations with financial services. And I'll let her talk a lot more about that later in the session. There's also a component of it where there are banking correspondents, which are local businesses in the community that can act as points of services also for the populations to be able to make transactions while they're away from the physical branch. So that's really innovative and interesting, and we're looking forward to hearing a lot more about it. And then finally, we will talk about the important role of CFIs in supporting and empowering women and youth in the credit union movement. And specifically here, we will hear from Manfred about Secreti's initiatives, the Youth Committee Program and the Women Committee Program, which are engaging young people and women to really be visible and to make a change very clearly in the credit union movement. And as I mentioned before, we are lucky to have with us representatives from these committees. So Vinicius, not only is he a youth committee member, but he's also a leader in that space. He's a coordinator. He has a very interesting background. He's an agronomist and a PhD student in rural development. So this is very much his wheelhouse, and we're happy to hear from him and what he has to say. And then similarly, Iveci is the first woman board member in her credit union, which is really impressive. She's also a farmer and a rural entrepreneur. She is currently a postgraduate student in interpersonal relations. So we're really looking forward to hear from her and how she joined the Secreti Women Committee. So we will leave that for later in the session. And Manfred will tell us a lot more about this. Okay, with this, I think I concluded the background portion of this session, and we can move now to the question and answer session. So first, I'd like to start with Diato. So Diato has been working with us on the Senegal project. She's seen how traditional credit terms can be improved in order to meet the needs of women in rural areas. And Diato, from your point of view also as an entrepreneur yourself, and you work with women and young people in rural areas on a daily basis, can you talk to us briefly about where you see an opportunity for financial cooperatives to address some of these barriers that are unique to women and young people in rural areas? Diato, you're muted.
Thank you, Dalia. Thank you very much for the introduction. Greetings to all distinguished guests in your ranks, great qualities, dear panelists, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to participate to this fourth panel. Always delighted when it talks about women empowerment and youth access to capital. As an entrepreneur and consultant in gender, I have noticed that the big step for CFIs willing to seize the opportunity of women potential is the change of mindset. That's one of the successful points we did with the GLI project. You know, if you want to design product, you want to serve vulnerable people, we all know that it's women in the world. So if you don't open the seats of governance and management where the decision making is being done, and you decide at their place, nothing will work out. So the first step for me is giving more senior responsibilities to women members. And we should not forget that when we talk about co-ops, these women are also shareholders, so they have the words to say. The second step is once we have women influencing on the decision, women at senior management level, like what happened in Pamecas, for example, women dominate the senior management positions. They have more accessibility, more facility to set up, to bring the organization, develop adaptive solution, financial and non-financial solution for the women customers. I'm expanding myself. Most of CFIs, what happened is they just sit in their office based on benchmark, they design product, but they have not really made the necessary need analysis to develop gender intelligent solution. So if you have women implicating in your governance and your management, so there will be a gender orientation of all activities, operational activities. And there will also be some more focus, more influence to develop an MIS system that give better gender data, because better gender data will help have a deep understanding of women life cycles, critical moments, where to be, when to finance. This is really, for me, one of the major steps that CFI should firstly understand before going further in women. Once you have all these levers, it is also very important to have an operational staff which is trained, which is who is benefiting from a capacity building programs, because servicing a woman is not servicing a man. Women are suffering from the triple burden, and you talk about earlier about the economic, the legal, the social, cultural, educational limits that give them less time, that eat their time and their capacity to access to better financial loans. So we need operational frontline staff dedicated to have an empathic relationship with the women, because women, they value the relationship. They're more loyal when the loan agent, for example, is very close to them and communicate a lot with them. So these frontline staff should be trained, should be professional, should have a deep understanding of the life cycle of the women, should have a deep understanding of what they really need and be there when they need it with the adaptive solution. This is very important. For me also, the CFIs, they should have a lobby. They should a lobby under Apex Professionals Association, because what limits women is mostly collaterals, deposits, anything which is related to risk. And the rulings that governance and central banks put on CFIs about credit risk management are also blocking them ease the access to capital for women. We all know they don't have assets, they don't have properties, they don't have land, they don't have economic power like men to give collaterals. So there's also an external factor that CFIs should work on. I will come back on much more details later on in the programs. Thank you, Daria.
Thank you so much, Diato. That was a really rich response. And I hope that members of the audience are taking mental notes, and we can come back for questions from the audience also for you to dig deeper on some of these items. Now I want to turn to Patricia. Patricia, in your opinion, in your experience, could you tell us a little bit more about how cooperatives, financial cooperatives, can ensure that their financial products and services are adequate for rural women and rural youth? And also maybe during your response, you could tell us a little bit more about your credit union and some of the innovations and initiatives that you're doing to address these barriers.
Good morning. Thank you so much for inviting us to this important panel. Our company has always thought that empowering women is very important. We have been working with WOCU through a program we had with Opportunities Banking, a program by the national government. We started to think how we can reach women. Women are very important. Microempresas de Colombia, from the very beginning, thought about women, thinking about how to have an additional income to support households. This is how we started to develop microcredit programs aimed at women. 76% of our members are women, and 64% live in rural areas. We said this is the opportunity we have to reach women in the rural areas through a program called Cooperative Seed. This program was implemented with WOCU, aimed at women in rural areas. These women could not go to offices. We could have offices close by, but they would not be able to get there precisely because of what the previous panelist was saying. They are very far away. women have different times at which we are available. So we prepared a program thinking of the conditions of the life of women. We really wanted to get to them in the rural areas. We wanted to meet with them at appropriate times, for example, 4 p.m. in an open area. And the first contact they would have would be with other rural women. Help them also to develop capabilities, these soft skills, for example, having visibility, not being afraid to speak, knowing there is another woman who's also on our side and that tomorrow we could turn to her, knowing that we could have a productive project, for example, how to look after pigs, how to raise chickens, something to allow them to have an additional income to support their families. This had to do then with the work of Cooperative Seed, this program. But for that, we needed to have the right tools. Our own institution needed to grow and say, okay, what are we going to do? To that effect, we created a facility so that when the advisor would go support these women, a program that would happen with something very fun, for example, a game that would teach them how to speak, how to express themselves, how to think about those around them. So we thought that in our events in the rural areas, women would be there with their children. Why? Well, kids cannot be left alone at 4 p.m. So we would choose a very nice area. We would talk there, the children would be there and learn about how the system worked through games. We were teaching how it was important to save part of our earnings, what to do with the rest. So cooperatives helped us to save, how to think about having a business, thinking how to go about doing that. This was so important. We created a way in real time in the rural sector. We'd be able to provide our money, and I would see that in that account, I had the 10,000, the 20,000 pesos I had saved. And that gave these women peace of mind. Then we saw that this not only had to do with being able to go to them, but also the fact that they had peace of mind when they saw what they had. We also worked with correspondent banking. We did not have businesses, offices in every municipality. So today we have 127 correspondents, and these are handled by women. Maybe it is at a butcher shop, maybe it is at a store, and we see all of these facilities we have created so that when a woman would go there to make a withdrawal, they say, well, I have my money, but I want to be able to see it. So it was so important for these women to be able to go maybe to this grocery shop where they could do withdrawals because they were part of our correspondent network. Women would have everything they needed. We created this with a 4-digit password. Women could go, the children can go to these groceries shops and they can make their withdrawals. We also thought about something else. How can we reach women? How can we reach these faraway areas? These women should not have to go to offices. So we worked on the digital side, creating a very large ecosystem. We created an app, and through our cell phone, we can have a digital credit, we can have savings. We can also go into the app and create scheduled savings for our kids to study later on. all women think about their children's future studies. So we said, well, they could be saving for that. What we sell with our business, we can put in the app and set aside for their children's education. This is something the education thought about. We realized they needed to have specific programs for women.
It's open to the public, but women are the ones who develop this. We need to think about them and to develop soft skills so that we can be visible. So this is where the institution decided to establish a series of tools to assist women. And this is what Microempresas has done to get closer to women in the fields. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia, very much for this, and congratulations on all of your work and all of what your organization has been able to achieve in considering rural women and their needs. So thank you so much, and we'll come back to you and hear a lot more from you. Right now, I want to turn to Manfred for my next question. And I'd like to ask you, in your opinion, about the advantages of including diverse members and leaders, specifically women and young people, in financial cooperatives. And please tell us a lot more about the Secreti Youth and Women Committees. We're really looking forward to hearing about these models.
Saudar a todos, respeito a você,
Good
Dália.
morning, everyone. Dália, Ubika. And it was very good to hear the friend from Senegal and Patricia from Colombia. Thank you very much for the invitation. Dália, I wanted to say that Secreti is a system of 108 credit unions in Brazil, is a confederation, and we have a foundation with more than 5 million members. Together here with me, I'm accompanied by a young associate, Secreti, and he's also a member of the committee, is Matia. He has rural roots, as it was said before, and we have also a woman who has roots in the rural area, Yvette Jazoffi, who is an advisor for the credit union. She will explain herself, so it's easier if they explain what they do. Secreti has more than 100 years, but in the last few years, we have reached different areas respecting the initial ideas. We are a member of the UN Pact since 2019, and we're a member of WOCO for the last 20 years. So we have strengthened agro-business in Secreti. I mean, turning toward the rural areas, trying to include more remote areas. We have urban and rural products, of course, but that's how it works. And through our Secreti Foundation, we created a program called Comitê Jovem, Young Committee for the Youth, so to involve young people, members of WOCO. And we have a women committee too, inspired in the world movement of leader women. This was created in 2009. And I would like to show you two videos, one about the Committee for Youth and the other for women. And then I'll ask Vinicius and Yvette to take the floor and tell their stories themselves. So let's watch the two videos now.
Mais do que rede social, ter propósito. Mais do que curtir, se engajar. Mais do que compartilhar, cooperar com o outro. Mais do que tecnologia, uma forma de transformar o mundo. Os jovens sempre são protagonistas nas transformações sociais e cada vez mais se relacionam com organizações modernas e alinhadas aos seus valores. O Comitê Jovem Sicredi surgiu em 2015 para fomentar o cooperativismo, a liderança e o protagonismo social entre vocês, jovens associados. Mas como o mundo muda cada vez mais rápido, o Comitê Jovem também se transformou. Para incentivar e orientar você, a etapa formativa do programa possui uma metodologia moderna e dinâmica, com encontros e atividades realizados em 18 meses, ao longo de 2 anos, que contemplam 4 perspectivas: linguagem acessível, para um aprendizado moderno e descomplicado, pílulas de conteúdo, cada aula é uma microjornada de aprendizagem, desafios reais, todas as atividades oferecem aprendizado na prática, colaboração entre os membros, dinâmicas e desafios pensados para conectar os participantes entre si, trabalhando os seguintes temas: cooperativismo e educação financeira, liderança e protagonismo, exploração e prototipagem, autoconhecimento e propósito, sustentabilidade e impacto positivo, empreendedorismo e inovação, voluntariado. Além disso, o programa terá a parceria da Junior Achievement por meio da iniciativa JA Startup, apoiando você na construção do seu projeto de inovação. Você também terá a oportunidade de participar dos summits regionais, para trocar ideias e experiências com jovens associados de outros comitês. E para fortalecer ainda mais o seu desenvolvimento, o programa terá uma novidade que fará toda a diferença: a prática da mentoria. A partir de encontros com mentores voluntários, que poderão ser colaboradores do Sicredi, coordenadores de núcleo ou associados da comunidade, você desenvolverá habilidades para transformar suas ideias em futuras startups. Você também será incentivado a inscrever seus projetos no Y-Cup, iniciativa global para jovens das cooperativas de crédito do mundo inteiro, que tem como premiação uma bolsa de estudos anual oferecida pelo OCO para promover e envolver a próxima geração de líderes de cooperativas de crédito no movimento internacional. O Comitê Jovem Sicredi é uma oportunidade para ajudar você a chegar aonde deseja. Nós estamos prontos. Só falta você. Vamos juntos?
E podemos rodar o próximo já?
Next video, please.
Existem mulheres capazes de pensar o que ninguém pensou, de imaginar o inimaginável, de realizar o que jamais havia sido realizado. Elas têm o poder de mudar o mundo. Elas são como nós, carne, osso, sentimentos, ideias, e conquistaram o reconhecimento com dedicação, força, coragem e perseverança. Porque toda mulher pode fazer a diferença no mundo à sua volta, desde que tenha acesso ao necessário para realizar os seus sonhos. Com o propósito de inspirar, empoderar e preparar as mulheres para enfrentar e vencer as barreiras e desafios impostos pela sociedade, surgiu o Comitê Mulher, programa com finalidade educativa que busca promover a equidade de gênero, empoderando as mulheres a participarem de forma mais ativa e com mais protagonismo nas suas comunidades. O programa de formação Comitê Mulher é norteado por eixos temáticos com conteúdos relacionados à liderança, cooperativismo, comunicação e empreendedorismo, sempre com foco no papel das mulheres. E proporciona às membras integrar uma rede global de mulheres para a troca de ideias e experiências que possam ser aplicadas nas comunidades locais, possibilidade de participar de intercâmbios e conferências, ter acesso à plataforma digital da Rede Global de Mulheres Líderes e da Sister Society Brasil, e experimentar o sentimento de pertencer a uma causa maior que congrega mulheres ao redor do mundo. Afinal, a igualdade de gênero é fundamental para alcançarmos uma sociedade mais justa.
Obrigado por ter rodado aí os vídeos.
Thank you for showing the videos. I would like now to ask Vinicius to take the floor and present his standpoint. Thank you, Vinicius, for being here with us. Thank you, Manfred. Good morning from Brazil. I'm Vinicius Matia. I am a rural young person. We produce grains, soy, corn, together with my family. I had worked before with other credit unions. However, to get closer to the sector, in 2016, I was invited to be a volunteer for the youth committee of Sicredi. The group was starting and nobody knew exactly what we were going to do. However, the the model of work activity of Sicredi is cooperative and collaborative. So we together with other youngs started to work together. And since the beginning, being part of this youth committee, I realized that we went through different steps or phases to get to the point where we are now. At the beginning, there was a training program about credit unions, security, products and services, financial education, and other important topics for our training. We have also undertaken voluntary actions for the local community, and we were encouraged to design projects that had a positive impact in our situation, our environment. And we continue, therefore, working and getting training and getting prepared to have roles of leadership. And so myself, motivated by Sicredi, I've designed a project for my own community in 2019, whose goal was to promote family farmers in the municipality and produce healthy foods for children in schools. The project was well received with regional cooperatives and was presented in White Cup, which is, of course, the leadership program that Dalia presented. And I suggest that you reach to the internet to connect, to know this program. And I was one of the 3 winners during the World meeting of WOCO. So my work is recognized in the whole world, and I'm in contact with other young people around the world to present Sicredi, to form and to encourage other cooperatives to be part of this movement. This year, I was invited by the World Conference of Credit Unions, and I spoke there, and now I'm speaking to you. This year, I have a new role of leadership in our cooperative, and I hope to continue growing and contributing more and more so that my co-op may help um, other people. So with the opportunities that Sicredi bestowed on me and what the opportunities I found and the activities I carried out, we can contribute to with other young people in Brazil and around the world so that young people then integrate in terms of decisions of credit unions and management credit unions so that sustainability is ensured to our type of business with good results for our respective organizations. I thank you very much for the opportunity you gave me to participate here. Thank you, Vinicius Sicredi. Thanks you very much for your leadership and your influence. I would like now to ask Ivete Lila Sansofen to say a few words. Ivete, thank you for being here today with all your energy and enthusiasm. Please take the floor. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Manfred, for this opportunity. I am Ivete Schofen. I'm a farmer, and I work in our farm where we produce soy and corn, and we also have fish raising and pig raising. And so since I was a child, I saw my father being part of this credit union movement. And at age 13, I joined a youth committee of a industrial and farm cooperative that's still working with us in our property. A few years later, I joined a women's committee for that co-op. So during years, I was the chairwoman for these women committees with 600 women farmers. So we had activities, events, training, conferences, so that we would encourage these women farmer to integrate cooperative and to be more active within the co-op. In 2018, as Secretary Aliança formed a women's committee, they invited me to be a volunteer, a member of the committee. And I was very surprised because that same year I was elected as the first coordinator of the Women Committee of Security. And that position allowed me to participate in many different events from Security and participating in other credit unions where I represented in my committee and my co-op. President Manfred explained to us that the goal was to train leaders to try to include women in the management of credit unions. And he used an interesting analogy. He said that diversity is to invite to the party, and inclusion is to ask somebody to dance. And the women's committee asked me to dance with them. And I went to the dance floor because the committee is a democratic space for training, personal development, learning, and leadership. So that opportunity was given to us women through the women committee of our co-op. And that has increased my initial dream to help people to do more for others. So in 2019, I ran for the role of coordinator of the group, and I was elected. And I was the first woman to be elected to be a member of the directive council of this security. Well, of course, being an advisor has challenges and a lot of responsibility, and that goes much beyond application of the bylaws. I mean, I have a motivating role. I have to inspire other women to occupy their place, to make a difference, to help with their capacity and their skills, and for the strengthening and the sustainability of credit unions, and also the communities where we live. Women's inclusion in management of credit unions is essential so that all together we can build a more prosperous society, men and women together. And when we work together, we are stronger. And I would like now to send all the women that are working with me a very important message. And the message is this: if you have a dream, believe in it, fight for it, don't give up. Because if I, a simple farmer, I found my space, you will find your space. Go ahead. Because credit unions and other co-ops need our strength, our discipline, our courage, our empathy, and a lot of love too, so that all together we can build uh, a more equitable world and a more equal world for all. Thank you very much for the organizer of this event. Thank you, Secretary, for the invitation, and I'm counting on all of you women to pursue this path. Yvette, thank you so much for your skills as an influencer and all you do. I would like to offer ourselves now to answer questions now, if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secreti. Thank you, Ivechi. Thank you, Vinicius. And thank you, Manfred. This was really inspirational. And I'm so happy you all shared with us this amazing initiative. And I hope other financial cooperatives go ahead and start implementing similar initiatives. Now I'd like to ask a question to all of the panelists about in representation of women and youth in CFI boards. And we know that one way to do that is through enforcing quotas for representation. So I'd like to ask all of you if you see this as an effective strategy, and just to elaborate on your opinion. And maybe we can start with Diato.
Thank you, Dalia. So I would like to jump on your question, which is very important. It's very important to me. You know, when you fix quota for women and youth to be represented, it's limiting their capacity to participate and influence. You know what happened with the JLI project in PAMECAS? We noticed that during the focus group with the board members, we noticed that in some credit union, women were willing to participate, to apply for board seats, but men were elected. While in other credit union, we have women who did not know that they could apply at the General Assembly, they can have elected seats. So for me, it should be flexible. Because if you put quota, you can have even more women willing to participate, but limited by the quota. Yeah.
Thank you, Diato. Thank you so much. Do other panelists have reactions, either in agreement or disagreement? Anyone else would like to jump on this question?
I just would like to say that we do not agree with this idea of quotas. We are an open institution, open to all, and we created the youth committee and the women committee to develop leadership among them. But I would rather ask Yvette, because Yvette, she was elected to be advisor or member of the council, to explain their point of view. And maybe Vinicius could say what his dream is. I mean, he's walking towards that. Yvette, within our confederation, we think that there is no need for quotas so that women can take their place in the boards or branch managers or directors. We women, we have the capacity, we can contribute with ideas, suggestions, decisions to the growth and development of credit unions. As Diato said, quotas may limit the participation of women. We don't need quotas, we need a space where we're valued. And we can affirm to you that the Women Committee is the space. It allows women to show their skills. This committee allows for us to develop ourselves and to realize how important it is to have a diverse credit union in terms of organization. So I don't think quotas will help in any way. They may actually impede the participation of more and more women. Thank you, Yvette. Vinicius, can you say if you think quotas help? I think that the greatest effort must be made in creating space for young people to participate in these credit unions, to show the young people the opportunities, saying that if they participate, that opens other possibilities for their career, and to be receptive to those who are ready to be part of the movement. So at the point when you put together several young people who are ready to start working with a credit union, some of them will be more interested. He will make a greater effort, to contribute to the credit union. So those who stand up like that must be shown the way to become managers of credit unions. Now, if you create quotas, that's too artificial. Quotas will perhaps impede and will not help people develop enough to be part of the management. Thank you. Thank you, Vinicius. Thank you, Yvette. What we think in terms of inclusion and the role of quotas may play on this.
Thank you very much, everyone. If anyone else would like to participate, please go ahead.
Ciao, Dalia. Yo pienso que los
I
cupos
believe that quotas, as the previous panelist said, I believe they are limiting. I have been part in about 12 councils. And this has happened because of my expertise, I believe, as women and also the young people. We need to have visibility and we have to know what we are doing, why we go to a certain council. When we have visibility, when we have the knowledge, we get chosen, we get elected, and we should participate. We believe we need to work on our soft skills so as to be able to have that involvement. I believe saying 4 or 5 women is something limited. I believe this should be based on the knowledge we have so as to be part of a board of directors and also to guide those that come after.
Thank you, Patricia. Lena, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to just add, although a lot of the panelists already covered this, and thank you for this being part of this session today. Truly, truly inspirational. So congratulations to everyone for all the work they're doing. It was mentioned by many of the panelists, right? Quotas definitely impede or definitely interrupt the process. And I just wanted to add that you can also see it in the reverse too, right? You need to see it at the leadership level. You know, if everyone looks like you have a problem, right? If they're all female, you have a problem. If they're all male, you have a problem. So you have to see your membership base and you have to see your leadership team, and definitely setting quotas. You need that diversity of thought. So you need to bring in young professionals. You need to bring in more women. You need to bring in the different minds and the different backgrounds, because that's only going to make your credit union, your financial cooperative healthier and better able to serve your diverse communities. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lena. Okay, that was a very engaging discussion. Let's move on to a different question to the panelists. So I think it's important to talk about the implications of regulatory changes that could be needed to decrease or ease the barriers for financial access for women and youth. Does anyone want to take that question on and talk about some of these implications?
Posso falar, Dália? Gostaria.
I would like, Dalia, says Manfred, I would like to take the floor. Dalia, as far as we are concerned, and in our case, we don't see barriers that are written or anything. There are biases that people are unaware of them. But our point is very clear. We created the committee. The committees are informal groups to support directors, managers of our credit unions, so that these committees offer a voice and offer a position to other people, and ideas circulate. And we think that the board must be influenced by the ideas of these committees. And so when the women and youth meet in their assemblies, or when we have assemblies or meetings of the council, that representatives of the two committees take the floor and express their voice, more important than regulations, I think. And I think that we, men especially, we have to create a space. We have this responsibility. We have to promote inclusion and diversity, as said by Yvette. So the way we see things is, no, there are not barriers on paper, for instance. It's biases. And work deserves congratulations for initiating this movement. We also take into account the UN Global Pact. We're a member of it. We see more and more people talking about sustainability and diversity and how they go together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Manfred. I'd like to invite Diato to say her perspective on this issue as well.
Thank you, Dalian. Manfred, thanks for the contribution. It was really interesting. I would like to add something which is very critical for real women. Most of them, they're lacking of birth declaration documents. And we know that supervisory bodies, state governance structures, they impose to CFIs that a copy of the identity birth certificate or a copy of the identity card to open a bank account. So what are we going to do with all this great deal of women without birth certificate documents? So I think there should be a work on it, to give alternative solutions for those category of women and youth from rural areas without legal identification documents.
Thank you, Diato. That's an important barrier also. Does anyone have reactions or anything else they'd like to say on this topic?
Dalia, if I could jump in just for a second.
Yes, please.
So thank you as well for the opportunity to join this great panel today. Some fantastic discussion taking place. The one regulatory barrier that comes to mind with both the work that I do with YCUP and in my role at WOCU as regional representative in Latin America is the barriers that exist in some countries to access to the wider payment systems for credit unions. And specifically in those countries where credit unions fall under the supervision of a general cooperatives law instead of a specific law for financial cooperatives. And the result of this is specifically for youth, is it limits our ability to design specific products and services that are really seen as essential for young people in this day and age for connecting virtually through the payment systems to be able to access specific products and services and of the larger networks within the country. So I think that's one area where there's some work to be done at the national level to help credit unions gain access to those financial system or payment systems that will allow us to expand and be more inclusive.
Thanks so much, Tom. That's an interesting aspect also to keep in mind. Any other contributions? Okay, I will move to another question. This is generally, does anyone have other ideas? We've heard a lot from the panelists today about strategies to increase the participation of women and youth. That includes as members of the cooperatives, but also as leaders. And I want to ask if there are any other strategies that are alternative that we haven't heard that you might want to introduce today. We can keep thinking about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Lena.
I'm just going to comment on something that you presented initially in your intro slides, right? We did, through GWLN, go through the process of collecting data from our members and our leaders across the globe through the GWLN pink paper earlier this year. And the purpose of the paper was actually to look at, ways that individuals, women, and credit unions could actually implement some strategies or implement some thoughts or initiatives within their credit unions. First, the women for themselves, and then the credit unions themselves, to be able to advance and be able to support more women in the credit union co-op space. And we have a graphic in there or a page that highlights all the recommendations and all the suggestions, and you have the paper plugged in the beginning slide so people can easily access it online. But I think one of the first and foremost things that I need to bring to the attention here is one of the amazing things in the findings, which I was kind of shocked to hear about. And for everyone on the call, I was very fortunate to work on this project with Dalia. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that. Was that women, one of the biggest obstacles that women felt was preventing them from moving forward was actually the confidence to advocate for themselves, right? Many times we talk about bringing other women forward or lifting other women up, but many times women said that, they can do that easily for a colleague or a friend or a coworker, but many times they don't take that first step forward. So I think one of the first things that we need to re-examine as females is to look at, the confidence in taking that first step forward and raising your hand like Yvette did and said, yes, I'm interested. I want to go forward. I want to lead, and I want to bring other women on board to lead as well, right? So you need more women like Yvette, you need more women like Diato who understand, who raise their hand, feel comfortable themselves and push forward. And that's just a simple approach, but there's a listing of other thoughts and strategies in the document as well. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lena, for this contribution.
Eu gostaria de fazer uma observação.
I would like to comment on something. This is very important, and then I'd like Vinicius to say something about it too. But in the women's movement, we do defend clearly these committees, which are informal support group to support the board. So we have the youth and the women committee. But Lena, we also have to include more men who work on women inclusion. More we for she. So we need more men. Vinicius is an example here. He is in this movement. So when we have more men who are available to create committees, to open the spaces, to invite, to ask others to dance, as Yvette mentioned, we can broaden this view, because having this view that we have a token woman in the board, and then you see that you need at least 30% to have a voice. Yvette is alone in the board. She needs to bring more women in the next elections to work with her. And so I would like Vinicius to comment on this as well. Yes, Manfred, I agree. I agree with what you said. And in my opinion, the main strategy is inclusion itself, but an inclusion that is real and not just rhetoric. We hear that a lot, but we sometimes don't see it in practice. We need a process that offers opportunities to women and young people so that this population can be part of the debate, so that they can be heard, we can hear their ideas and contribution, and so that they can participate in the CFIs and they can feel good being in those positions too. And about our role as youth members, many say that young people are the future of the organizations, but I disagree. I think that we are the present and the future. We're not just the future. We need to build today what we want to see in a few years. And this is why we need to be in the decision-making processes in our institutions. And I would like to invite all of you to take a look at the WOCU document that explains our organization, our youth committee, and Tom and his team prepared this document when they visited Brazil. And they wrote about their observations on how we organize our program. Thank you, Vinicius. Yvette, would you like to say something? I know that you have a lot to say. Yes, I would like to emphasize what you said. Men need to encourage women to be part of the organizations. And we see in some organizations that the male leadership sometimes think that women are coming to take the men's role. But leadership is not permanent. You work, you create a legacy, you involve other people, you train other leaders, and then you move on. And that is our role. We won't be here forever. The men are not here forever. Women are not here forever. But we need to motivate other people so that they can understand how diversity and change is important, so that we can have a stronger institution for everyone. It's not men, women, it's not rural, it's not commerce, it's not industry, it's everyone. It is built by everyone. And this inclusion work is wonderful. It is very gratifying for women when we are accepted by men, when we see that men want to see us participate, when we see this movement that invites us into the institution. I was very well received by my colleagues on the board. I have my space. I am respected as a woman, as a person, because I have skills, because I am competent, and every human being is different. And each person can contribute with something in that role. And this is our role. We need to change our view of the gender. The capacity is not in the gender. We need people who devote their time to this volunteer work, which is also part of cooperatives. We need people who want to serve others and irrespective of gender. So I would like to thank all men who opened the doors. We have Manfred here, who is a hero for us. He's fantastic and inspires us every day. And I hope I can be this inspiration too for other women. And I want to have more women with me. Uh, Being a cooperative institution means that we grow together. And this is my dream. We need more people, more women participating, and we need this equality in every aspect. This is essential so that we can have better days. Thank you, Yvette.
Thank you so much. This is a really, really important conversation, and I'm so happy to be part of it. Diato, I see your hand up. Do you want to contribute?
Yes, Delia, I would like to insist on the advising side for the CFIs. It's not only giving money, giving a loan, it's about also building capacity. And in general, we only heard about financial literacy, financial education. No, for me, women deserve much more better. They deserve a full package, leadership, learning them to be self-confident, learning them to have independent thinking. Because rural women are under the influence of husband, relatives, society. So we should bring them to think differently, to be independent. It's very important for me. You know, if they have an activity generated revenue, they get a loan, but they don't know how to communicate, how to market their product, how to present their product. For me, it's useless. This loan is useless. We should have a comprehensive capacity building program. CFI should invest on that side also. Very important. The second point is that many CFIs, they hesitate to serve rural women. They are seen as risky, it's too far, operational costs are higher. No, we all know the evidence that financial inclusion will be driven by the digital financial services. Branchless marketing, branchless banking, branchless operating system for the CFIs, like using ATM, mobile money. These are all distribution channels, like Yvette was saying, to serve the, like Patricia was saying, to serve the women. So innovation and proactivity should be also something that drives the CFIs when they service rural women and youth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diato. And I'm glad that you brought up the issue of risk, because we actually have a question from the audience to Patricia. Let me read it. This is a question from Julieta. She's asking, how are you managing the risk associated to providing credits to rural women through the Semia Cooperativa program? Would you like to take that on, Patricia?
Bueno, muchas gracias, Julieta.
Thank you so much, Julieta. Allow me to tell you the risk is the same for a woman or a man. As institution, we have the same request of the same warranties for men or women in the rural sector. What we do is we offer something that has these lighter requirements because the amounts are smaller. Women make request lower amounts. You're asking about the measures we have implemented. Well, in this group, the thing is we would help one another. If a woman was having to have a productive project, the two people would sign. This does not mean that we are reinforcing warranties for them. We have the same ones, and we believe they should be the same both for men and women, the same conditions. They are just a bit softer because we do not have the experience nor the experience men having with requesting these loans. This was many times the first time a woman was requesting a loan, so they were smaller amounts. This is what we did vis-a-vis risk. And something I'd like to point out, the cooperative institution I lead has been working with something else called the involvement of women in public policy. We have implemented that as well because we wanted women in the rural sector to be part of public administration councils. We have had 3 programs and we have some council women in these rural areas, but this is because we have provided them with the right training so that they could do that. This is leadership that we need to have as women. We need to be visible, and to be visible, we need to have the soft skills I was mentioning before to show what we really are all about. Thank you, Dalia. Thank you, Julieta, for the question too.
Okay, we're going to try to take another question from the audience. I have a question about women who are leaders and are also mothers on boards, they're managers. What are the benefits granted to them and their children so they can continue to participate actively? And there are some options here: sick leave, quarantine period, and others. Does anyone have insight on this specific topic?
Gostaria de comentar, Dália.
I would like to say something, Dalia. And maybe Yvette will add something to what I say. But motherhood is a challenging topic, and we have to take that into account in our organizations. And we must understand this is not a barrier. Having children is a glorious event, is a lucky event. It's, in other words, to have in your organization women that are perpetuating mankind, so to speak. So men need to talk about this. In Sicredi, we have a very open program. Well, first of all, there are laws that protect in terms of sick leave, parental leave, not to suffer, not to suffer a reduction in salaries when you have a child, etc. So there is a whole environment to protect, but there are also biases that need to be eliminated. And I think that the role of the leader is to open up the topic, to bring the topic to the discussion openly, and that there's an open discussion about this. And the best way to deal with that is with good examples. In Sicredi, we have an example. A certain manager hired as director of a branch a pregnant woman. And I mean, I could say the house almost came down, but he resisted. He wanted her talent to his branch for the next 2 years. And why? Because having a child is temporary. Of course, she would have parental leave, maternal leave, if you will. They will have to take care of the child, but she had skills, and the director called on that talent to have a manager of his branch. And so these are issues that we need to discuss openly. And when it comes to leadership, maybe we should take into account the fact that is a very good thing to have within our group women that are pregnant or who have children, so they have the experience with creating a family. I think that for any board, this is important. So this is a wonderful topic, and once it's dealt with in the best possible way, it will be accepted by all. And in security, we do that. And there are biases still, of course, but we need to overcome such biases. I don't know. Yvette is a mother. Maybe she can add something. Yes, says Yvette. The issue of having children, being a leader, and when I started as a member of the Women Committee, I had two children, 2 and 3 years old. But I found time to uh, to do my role as in the co-op and to do good things for others. What's necessary is to organize your time, your schedule. I mean, there's some priorities, of course, if you're a mother, but you will find time to do good things for others. So that's another important aspect. Having women with young children in this experience is important because we're showing the next generation how these CFIs are important. It's better to bring people within it than trying to convince adults about the CFIs. I saw my father be part of community, be part of some co-ops, and that showed to me how important it is to volunteer for that work. And I am the leader I am today, thanks to the example of my father, and also thanks to my own experience as a mother. I have a boy or girl, they're adults now. My daughter was a special child um, at the time. She's autistic, but I learned a lot being her mother, and that was used by me as a leader for the co-ops. The aspect of prejudice against some people, and the fact that uh, the effort to include somebody who was considered in, that was not up to it by some people, but who actually have the capacity to do that. I spent 20 years defending my daughter's rights, trying to include her in society. And I think that's very important. So when we have mothers with young children who participate in these FIs, and we are actually uh, planting the seeds of cooperatives for the next generation. We're not here forever. We're just passing through, and we need to train people and prepare them, people to be even better than we were to um, to ensure the sustainability of CFIs. A woman with young children, that's not an excuse not to hire her. We are ready to cooperate and contribute to society.
Thank you so much, Iveti, for sharing this. We'll try to take one more question from the audience. This is from Juan. And the question is, in the experience of the panelists, which measures have been the most effective to increase membership of rural women and youth in the financial cooperatives? And which services are the most attractive for these groups? Who would like to start?
Gostaria, Dália, de trazer.
I would like, Dalia, says Manfred, would like to bring something to the fore here. We think that the so-called support committees are a great instrument, but other than that, Security has a very important social responsibility program. It is Union Brings Life. It's a participating program that we have with municipalities, with educational board of education so that we instruct children in rural areas, especially, to teach them ideas of citizenship, cooperatives, solidarity, so that we arise in them the willingness to be an associate member, to also be part of a co-op, to be part of a youth committee. And for high school, we have school co-ops, which is a movement that's growing so that they develop their awareness at that time. And when they become adults, they have no questions. I mean, they know that being linked to a financial institution will be better if it is a CFI. So this first door will be easy to him. And in terms of products and services, we direct them to the special public, women or the youth. So we have resources, we have international funds that we have that are for entrepreneur women, specific funds for women to invest. Women must be entrepreneurs, they have to have a history of enterprises. And for the women who are members of the board, we have some credit lines, international credit lines, cheaper credit, of course, for that purpose. So there are mechanisms of encouragement for all that. But it's more work, yes, indeed, but it's well worth it because you're talking about the sustainability of these initiatives. If you include the young, if you include diversity, you increase the force of your movement. So the programs that we have in schools are essential for us. Because that creates school co-ops by themselves and also teaches young people, young men and young women, and they learn and they know that when they become adults, they will open an account in a CFI rather than other type of institution. That's how we do it.
Thank you very much. Diato, do you want to add? I saw your hand up, but if you can do that very quickly as we're running out of time.
Yes, thank you, Dalia. You know, for the gender lens investment program from with WOCU and PAMECAS, we identified 3 levers to promote better access to capital for women. And the first lever was improving the credit process. And what we realized when it concerned rural women and the remote credit agency, we noticed that the loan agent were lending to women already over debt with the suppliers of input. That was the first observation. The second observation is that the product they were proposing to the women were not adapted to the cultural calendar. So we set up some capacity building program trainings in value chain financing. And this brings the loan agent to change their system when servicing rural women. So 1 month, 2 months later, when we went for the field monitoring, we realized that the beneficiaries of revised credit terms, of revised payment calendar, have really appreciated this big step. And also the frontline commercial staff realized that they were doing a lot of mistakes and confusing when servicing these women. So the capacity building is very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diato, and thank you to all of the panelists. This has been really, really interesting. There's so much to still talk about, and that's a good sign. So thank you all for being here with us and for sharing your experience with us and for discussing these really important points. And we hope that this serves as an example for cooperatives everywhere to do more. So thank you so much.
Yes.